How's it been, this run?
It has been intense, man. It's been a wild ride.
Are we living in the upside down world right now
Yeah.
in Canada and just generally?
Just in general, there's just so much stuff going on, and I think people are feeling really. I think the ultimate thing is people are feeling really anxious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anxiety and like the uncertainty, right? People kind of want to be able to predict their lives and know what's going to happen next, and now there's a lot that's up in the air, and life's already feeling really tough. The cost of living's been hard on people. And then now you throw in like the Trump tariffs and the trade war and the uncertainty, all that's making people really anxious.
What happened in your mind for when the people who have been abandoned side with the CEO culture and the private equity culture? This has become, I know that there's a lot of money being put into social media campaigns and bots behind the scenes. Is it more than that?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of things. Like if you've got lots of money, you can spread your message out. Sure, that's a big part of it. I think when people are nervous, they kind of stick with what they know. Maybe that might happen. But in all of it, I just want to remind people, we know this for a fact. Like Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. Like we've seen that in our own history. Like what makes Canada Canada are things like universal healthcare. Well, that happened because the New Democrats were there. That's Tommy Douglas, that people voted for him, gave him that power, and he brought in something that made Canadians so proud. And then most recently, people gave me that honor of supporting me and my team, and we brought in dental care and pharmacare.
Though, if those things, when they happen, it doesn't seem to matter.
I mean, who knows what the outcome of the election is?
Yeah, because polls aren't votes. Polls aren't votes,
So we're going to find out what that is on Monday.
But it's not Conservative voters flocking to prop up the Mark Carney thing. It's New Democrat voters and Bloc voters that appear to be going towards them. So when you look at who would be an NDP voter historically, what are you thinking when you see these numbers shift this way dramatically?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are all over the place, and that's why I'm just going to count on what the eventual,
But you must have internal polls.
Yeah, our internal polls are much better than what folks are. So we feel confident that we're going to re-elect lots of New Democrats, and we're going to elect more New Democrats. We're confident about that. Yeah. But what I think these last couple of days of the campaign are important is people need to go in wide-eyed and know what they're voting for.
Philosophically, what do you think the role of government is?
To make people's lives better, to fight for people, and to be active in that. And this is really, I think, it's a really important question. Each party has their own kind of theory of government. I think a lot of times the Conservatives are like, you're on your own. Let's get government out of your way, and you're on your own. Well, who does that benefit? That benefits people who are really rich, no problem. But for everyday people who need health care, who need a pension when they retire, who need social services, might lose their job, need employment insurance, it's not such a good picture where you say you're going to not be there for me. Our theory is people are better off when we look out for each other. I remember my dad, who incredible, his story is like inspiring. For the first school he went to was a village school where he sat on a dirt floor, and then he became the head of psychiatry in a Canadian hospital when he was struggling with an addiction, and he lost everything, lost his job, lost his license, lost lots of money, got bankrupt. It was a publicly funded rehabilitation center that saved his life. We had no money to spend on a private spot. So he is here today now. He's practicing, he's healthy again, he's taking care of patients, but he beat his addiction because there was a publicly funded center. So ultimately, people are not better off on their own. Everyday working class folks, everyday middle class folks are not better off on their own. Even people with decent salaries need each other to look out for one another for us to be able to move forward. And so I would remind, that's part of why I actually fought for dental care and pharmacare, to show people we actually can get good things done.
One of the reasons why you worked with the Liberal government is to get this stuff together. Do you think if you had pulled the trigger earlier, the NDP would have more seats ultimately in the House?
Oh yeah, I kind of said that recently.
Yeah.
I said maybe it could have happened. Basically a lot of people saying back last fall, there was an opportunity. We were polling in some polls ahead of the Liberals, most of them neck and neck with them. We could have guaranteed won a whole bunch of seats. I wanted the dental care and pharmacare to actually be delivered to people, because we had passed it, but we didn't have enough people receiving the actual benefit. I wanted people to benefit from it, so when the next government couldn't take it away.
So if all that happens and we're sitting here in the span of a couple of months, things have changed dramatically for this country and dramatically for the NDP. Does the NDP play any role in this? It can't all just be Trump and 51st state stuff.
Oh, I mean, just a month ago, we were in a wildly different position, and a month later things changed. I mean, the only thing that happened was Trump and the threat to our country. And
the Liberal leadership changed too. I think people look at Mr. Carney and they think
But I think that change was only in the context of Trump. Like if there wasn't the Trump threat, I don't think that change would have had the same impact. It was because all these things happen at the same time, and all of a sudden people are like, wait a second. I can give you the perspective of a guy that grew up in Windsor. Like, we are so connected with the States. Like, our economies are connected, our lives are connected. People live and cross the border all the time. It was such a betrayal that unprovoked, out of nowhere, Donald Trump picked the fight with Canada.
Yeah.
Like, people were just like, where is that coming from? Like,
using that idea, the fact that the numbers didn't get behind the NDP, what does that say about the way people either view the NDP or the way the NDP is connected with Canadians?
I would just say it's a crisis. In a crisis, what happens often is people kind of stick with what they know. Whoever was in government, they kind of stick with that. And then Mark Carney presented himself as someone that could be a good manager for the economy. And people are like, all right, maybe he's going to be good for the economy. We're up against Donald Trump. This is what we need. But this is what I want folks to know. For the things that people are really worried about, like if you live in Toronto, you're worried about the housing crisis. Sadly, Mark Carney was the chair of a big corporate landlord that bought up affordable homes because he thought, you know, they're only paying $1,000 a month rent. I could probably triple that and make more money. And they did that. So this is not a guy that's going to fix the housing crisis.
His plan, his plan's interesting. I think his plan's interesting. It's a different plan from what I would have expected from the Liberals.
Yeah, it's different. But if you look at, like, you know, your track record shows you who you're in it for. And I have no doubt that he's an awesome business manager for the billionaires. But is he someone that's going to stop like the corporate loopholes, the tax loopholes, when his company was one of the biggest tax dodgers in Canada? Like, he's not going to do the things that people are saying, hey, wait a second, why is it that a big company can set up an address in Bermuda and not pay taxes?
But that's legal.
It's legal,
It's
but many people say that that's something we should close down on.
Right, that I agree.
Right?
We should be closing all that down. Yeah,
right, we shouldn't let a company, if you make money in Canada, like, and you're exclusively making it here, you shouldn't then be able to be like, I'm just going to arbitrarily change my address to another country to avoid paying taxes.
If you're saying that people go to the middle, tend to go to the middle, should the NDP go farther, become more about being socialist? Is the NDP, everybody's moving to the middle. That was a criticism of Tom Mulcair when the NDP was there. That was even a criticism of Jack Layton when Jack Layton was getting to the orange wave. There was a lot of moving to the middle. Minority governments tend to keep people somewhere in a common ground. Looking at where we are now, is the middle, moving ideas to the middle, is that where the New Democrats should be?
Nah, man, we're going to fight for the people, and we're going to do it boldly.
Socialism?
I mean, what I believe in, I think we got to take care of each other. I think we're better off when we take care of each other. People want to call it socialism, call it that. But I think that, like, you're getting gouged at the grocery store. Our plan is to put a price cap on food prices. Yeah. That's an aggressive way to bring down prices. Yeah. I think that
France and Greece have done versions of this, right?
Yeah, very effectively.
And prices have come down.
I'm very impressed you know that. Yeah. France brought down food inflation by 15%. Greece brought down food prices by 15%. So it's very effective. And it's particularly, I think, right to do when we know that these corporate grocery stores have price gouged us. And there's many examples. More recently, this is a really horrible example, I think. Canadians are buying Canadian products because they want to be proud of being Canadian. Chapman's Ice Cream, just one company, I'm not endorsed by them or anything. I just like the fact that they said they're going to keep their prices the same. They're not going to increase their prices in this time of inflation because they want to support Canadians. A corporate grocery store, Loblaws, has jacked up the price of Chapman's Ice Cream because they thought they can make more profit because people are buying Canadian products. That to me is gross. And it shows us that they're just going to find any way possible to make as much money as possible unless we put in place protections for consumers. That's why we have laws that protect consumers, because otherwise companies could do whatever they want. And it's unfair, especially when you need something like food. So putting in a price cap on food essentials is a real aggressive, bold way to bring down food prices. Banning corporations buying up affordable homes is something we should be doing. It shouldn't be that it's a free market for big corporations to buy up just the affordable stuff and jack up those prices. That's bad for people.
Well, is housing a right? That is the philosophical question.
I believe it is.
To wrestle with,
right? Yeah, because like if we continue down the path we're going, where the price of homes are skyrocketing and people's salaries are staying the same, it's just untenable. Like we're not going to have a livable society if we continue down that path. And the only way to change that is to say, well, let's make the housing market work for people, not for rich investors.
We saw this impact in the U.S. election. We see the conversations here in terms of protests and gatherings and uprisings. We know the convoy one is significant in Ottawa. A lot of people showed up, and across the country, very significant protests and gatherings for Palestine and what's happening in Gaza. We know your position on it. We've heard the other parties' positions on it, and frankly, most people are just so uncomfortable around the question. It's really interesting to see how elected leaders, people we send to the House, just cannot speak clearly. Have you had conversations with other party MPs who say to you behind the scenes they agree with your position and they just can't say anything publicly?
I haven't really had those conversations, no, per se. But I mean, like, it's pretty obvious when you see the horror that's unfolded. Like, I think just as a human, you look at the loss of life, the death, the killing in Gaza, and you say, oh, obviously that's a genocide. That's horrible. I'm going to stop it. Yeah.
There are people who will contest the use of that word, genocide.
Well, I mean, there's a definition, a legal definition, and we just have to see if the definition is being met. And the criteria of the definition are like when you displace people from their homes, collective punishment, where you deny people the ability to live. I mean, like, those are what's happening there.
It's devastation. It's a total catastrophe what's happening there.
But more importantly,
crimes against humanity over there.
100%. And then there's an International Criminal Court that's actually issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu and his war cabinet. That should be executed. Like, that arrest warrant should be executed, and we should try this out, and the evidence should be brought forward. I think it's really clear what happened is wrong. At the same time, I think Hamas are terrorists, and they should also be brought to the International Criminal Court and prosecuted to the full extent. I'm a justice guy. I'm a human rights guy. I'm a lawyer. And I believe strongly in having a principled position on these things. And calling out injustice is kind of the first step. If you can't call out the injustice, how can you stop it? How can you stop horrible things from happening if you can't name what they are?
How do you navigate? Well, you know, I'm sure you've been getting attacks for this. I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, your comment section's a bit of a crime scene, right? How do you deal with, like, what do you do in this situation, knowing that there's so much pressure being put on people not to speak freely about this?
Well, I would say, like, I'm not going to assume that I have the solutions for everything. Like, I think, like, the solutions might be harder, but the basic humanity of it is, like, the people of Palestine should have human rights, live with security and peace, just as much as the people of Israel should be able to live with human rights, peace, and security. That's my starting point. Providing aid to kids and people that are starving and need help, I think is something we should do out of compassion. And then the ultimate solution, sure, that's going to be hard to get to a solution. And for anyone to suggest they have, like, the miracle way to get there with the snap of the finger, I think that's unfair. But I think the ultimate goal should be that we recognize that people are allowed to live in peace and security and should have self-determination. I think the people of Israel deserve that. The people of Palestine deserve that.
I grew up in some pretty ethnic black and brown neighborhoods, grew up in Rexdale and Malton. You repped Malton, actually.
I
after
did.
I left provincially. The racism and the South Asian conversation, it's sort of shocking in a way what's happened, I think, in this country. Using immigration as a reason to talk this way. I've seen you experience it. I've seen people talk to you on the street about it. What do you make of where we are in this country and our identity as it relates to immigration now? And by the way, not all anti-immigrants are racist. That's important to note.
Yeah. Well, I would say, like, ultimately the facts are we are a country based on immigration. It's a big driver in our economy, and we need immigration because our population growth doesn't meet our needs. And if you speak to any small business, you speak to people in the construction industry, we actually need a lot more workers to build the homes that people need to fill the vacancies that exist in certain sectors. We massively need immigration. So we need it. The level that we set it at, and this is my attempt to take it out of the kind of the emotional knee-jerk reaction, is let's base it on the evidence. Like, we know there's experts that can assess our labor market needs, our population growth needs, and we can set our immigration levels based on that. There are some things, though, I think are very deeply problematic. I think the exploitation of international students has been bad for both those students and broader for like the kind of the way our education system is being run is off the backs of exploiting international students.
Also, corporations wanted cheap labor here.
That's the second one. And temporary foreign workers is something I think we should just get away with entirely, because the idea of the temporary foreign workers is exactly that. It's cheap labor for rich corporations. It exploits those workers. It drives down labor costs for everybody. I think that's a bad thing. But in general, yeah, we obviously need immigration. If you go to, like, it's funny, if you go to some rural communities, I go to these northern communities, and they're basically fueled by, and they love the new Canadians to come there. Like, they've revitalized our whole community. Like, there's small northern communities that are like, we were kind of fading until these young folks came from different parts of the world, and basically our communities are now thriving because of that.
But for sure, you've seen the rise of anti-South Asian.
Oh yeah,
TikTok,
for sure.
Instagram. It's all out in the open.
Oh yeah. And I would say a part of that is, this is I think a serious point. When people are going through a tough time, like if I'm having a hard time paying my bills, I can't find a home that I can afford, if my life is rough, and then someone comes in and says, oh, you know what? It's that guy's fault. It's so easy to then scapegoat someone when the problem is you got, decades of inaction in building homes people can afford. You got large corporate grocery stores that are ripping you off, but it's complicated to say, well, they're ripping you off, we got to take them on. And it's just easy to say, oh, all my problems are because these new folks are here.
Right.
So I think a part of what we do to fight back against the hate is make people's lives better. Like if you materially improve everyday lives, like make it easier to afford a home, make it easier to afford your groceries, it takes away the tension that can be exploited to then blame people and divide us.
Last question before you go. That day that you looked like you were going to get into a fight with those two guys outside in Ottawa, where it looked like it was going to, my first question was how long before one of them had to tap out, but more importantly, what was happening in your day and in your week that you think played a role in that moment?
Oh yeah, I know exactly. Actually, we had thought about this a lot. So first of all, I'm a scrapper. I grew up scrapping. I grew up having to fight when I was a kid. I fought in the streets. I had to defend myself. I took martial arts. I competed in the ring. I was a lawyer. I had to fight for my clients. Like I fought for people against like the insurance companies.
People would rip off your turban when you were a kid too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like I grew up having to scrap. So I'm familiar with having to scrap. But in that moment, actually, it's very interesting. The backstory is there was like 10 guys that were just harassing everybody. They were just kind of in the corner in Ottawa for like this 3 or 4 day period of time, and they were just harassing people nonstop. They had like picked on journalists a lot. They were picking on women. A bunch of my MPs had come to me and be like they were harassed, and I just had it. And so when they came after me, I'm like, all right, let's see what happens when I turn around, because they were picking on people that maybe wouldn't turn around on them. What's going to happen if I turn on them? And we saw what happened. Like, people who are bullies, who are used to picking on people that are weaker than them, they fold pretty quick when you
Christian
stand up.
choked a guy. Would you have hit him? Would you have hit one of them?
Well, listen, if it came to defending myself, I wouldn't hesitate to defend myself. But I wanted to confront him, right? Like, what's up? You're running your mouth. Now what's up? And we saw what was up.
That was like a little glimpse of the 14-year-old you.
Yeah,
in that
totally,
moment.
totally.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man.
Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Thanks.